All right, it is 8 o'clock, so we'll get started. I know some people may jump on as we get going, but again, Dan Rother, top student athlete recruiting. I'm based in Dubuque. I do coach with Iowa ODP and involved with several age groups in Iowa ODP. But in addition to that, um, I run top student athlete recruiting, where I help use my experience and connections as a um, former college soccer coach, um, who's still really involved in the game to help connect student athletes and college coaches, and find the right fit opportunities for both sides. And kind of a matchmaker, kind of an agent, whatever you want to call it. But there's a lot of things that go into that, right? And it's helping reduce the stress of the process, helping find the right opportunities, whether it's to get on radars, to play in front of coaches, so they can see you play and things like that. So that leads me to tonight's conversation. This is a webinar format, so it will just be me on the screen, mostly talking. But if questions do come up, you can't talk to me at this point yet, but you can type them in the chat or the Q&A. I can't allow you to talk if we get to that point. But I'll stay on at the end and answer all the questions I can. Hopefully through the process and through the conversation, I may answer your questions, but if they come up, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to answer them either along the way or at the end. So I work with a lot of student athletes, soccer players, obviously from around the Midwest, a lot of Iowa kids, a lot of Iowa ODP kids. And what to do this summer for your college soccer recruiting, picking ID camps. Do you need to go to ID camps? Showcases, how do those play in? What should you do? Everything to what club team should you play on? Those are the questions that I deal with on a daily basis with people I'm working with. And so I want to give you a lot of information about that. I think there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of blurred lines, and there's a lot of fear missing out, if I'm being honest. And people are worried that if they don't do one thing, that it's going to affect their recruiting. And I'm here to hopefully bring some reality to this and reduce some stress. That's my goal when I work with my clients, but it's my goal to help you in IODP as well. So we'll get right to the chase. What is a college ID camp? Identification, right? College coaches are identifying if you are a potential student athlete for their program. Coaches are usually the ones they know about and invited personally. When you go to these camps, they know about those kids. They know about those kids that they've invited personally. But there could be 100 kids at a camp, and you may not even get a look in the one day or a couple hours that you're at a camp, depending if they don't know who you are. They might be specifically watching it. I've heard all the, and I've seen it. I've worked at these camps. You have a top group of 15 kids that they're really interested in. Those kids are treated differently, get to play in different environments than the rest of the campers at these camps, at these huge ones. You might get lucky, and I've seen it. I've seen kids get lucky at these camps. They show really well and might start getting recruited, but I'll be honest, it's very rare. And usually coaches, like I said, are already looking at certain specific kids before the camp even starts. So, you need to find a way to get in. And if you do go to big camps, find a way for a coach to know about you. So they are specifically watching you when you're there, because there's a lot of noise at those camps because there's so many kids, depending on the situation. You want to get out in front of it, and they need to know who you are. The truth of the matter is ID camps are tryouts. There's no better way to say it, right? If you're going to a tryout, you need to be in great shape. You need to make sure you're at your best. You shouldn't be getting out of a car after driving 5 hours. You might have to stay in a hotel, and that costs money. And there's a lot of things to it. Fly across the country and things like that. Whereas someone was able to sleep in their own bed or was in a better spot might show better. You got to understand that even if you go as a younger player, a freshman or a sophomore, depending on what gender you are and those types of things. We'll talk about that momentarily. But even if you go young and you don't get noticed, that might have been your tryout because they might say, "Oh, that kid was at our camp, didn't show that great." Well, you were a freshman, but that might have been the one time that your name's on their list. They know who you are. They took notes, and their notes might just be nothing. They didn't really see you play. They just kind of said, "Eh." If you weren't one of the top 15 players, they weren't even taking notes on you. I can promise you that's how it goes. I ran these camps. I worked at these camps. So camps are money makers for coaches, programs, coaching staffs. And there's different types of camps. We're going to talk about those momentarily. A good friend of mine is a fourth assistant, volunteer assistant, if you want to call it, at a major Division One. That individual gets paid by how many kids come to camp. So he's beating the streets to get as many kids to their camp as possible. Good, bad, kids that can play for them, kids that can't. All right, that's how that person gets paid. Is it a bit of a scam? Yeah, I mean, certainly. But it's life, it's business, it's how these programs survive. It's how they have fundraising. It's how soccer has enough money to survive compared to, football, basketball tend to get all the money, those types of things. So the question at hand is, do I need to go to ID camps to get recruited? I don't think you have to go at all. It's my personal opinion. I do think you have to play live in front of the coaches at schools that have interest in you or you want to play at if you're going to go to those particular programs. So if you're able to play in front of, that's part of the reason recruiting is fairly local, right? Like regional. It's easy for a college in Iowa to go see a kid play in Iowa. They can go see the high school game. They can go see club games. It's easier for them to evaluate you. And you don't have to necessarily go to those camps at those schools because they should be able to evaluate you during the year. Even regionally, I got kids in, at Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, all over the country. But it's easier when the school's, relatively in your backyard per se. So within a couple hours, because those coaches can come watch you play. Now, camps might be the way you have to get in front of a coach. If you a coach might be interested in you. You've sent video, you've sent a highlight video, you have a good full game video, which is important. And then that coach has a real conversation with you. And we'll talk about that more momentarily too. And they invite you to the camp, and then you go out and that might be the chance to perform in front of that coach. And that might be the way to get in front of a coach in California or South Carolina or wherever it might be that's far away from home. So camps can, there is a place for them, and they're a good chance for you to see an environment and for you to test out a coach and see if you really like how that coach coaches, their style of play, their culture, everything that goes along with it, and vice versa. The coach is kind of seeing how you fit in with the team, and because most of the players in the team are usually there, and how you fit in on and off the field and stuff like that. There's a lot of things with it. There's even some schools out there that have ID camps, that don't even need players in that class. They might not need a goalkeeper in the class of 2025 or 2026 because they have 2 freshmen, 3 freshmen, whatever it might be. But they're still going to have goalkeepers come to their ID camps. I promise you. They need goalkeepers to train and play, and they're not going to tell people they don't need players in that class. And they really don't know all the way through because of the transfer portal thing. We're going to talk about that momentarily. But I think camps just really need to make sure, and we're going to talk about it, there's a really good return on investment. It's worth your time, energy, and money. You really, there's a lot of things to that. We're going to talk all about that here tonight. So the types of ID camps, there's institutional ID camps. Institutional ID camps are like specific colleges have, and their soccer programs have camps. They have 2 types of camps. They have to be open to everybody based on NCAA rules. So anybody that signs up could go. The only thing that could determine who couldn't go would be age. You can say it's only open to 11th graders. You could do that as a coach. However, they do have invite-only camps. They have to post them on their website, but they're maybe not marketing them. Maybe they're not sending out emails to everybody. maybe they've only called their top 20 recruits or 15 recruits and said, hey, we really want you to this camp. I had a conversation with Creighton men's coach. This maybe it was March, early March. He's like, hey Dan, I got a individual, I got a camp coming up and I need some really good players. It might be kids that can play at this level. We're only having 24 kids. Most of them are kids that we're really interested in. And so he was able to, I said, oh, I got 2 kids I think could be in that mix. And so, they were able to get in front of a small group camp, 24 kids who were actually really being considered. Those have personal invites and very personal invites. You're seeing phone calls from the head coach and things like that for those types of things. Not just general emails, things like that. But some of these institutional camps are only for that school. Only school that would be there would be, Creighton. Creighton might have a big ID camp too, and I used to work it as a college coach at Loras College, right? I'd work Creighton's camp. They have a ton of other college coaches there. So instead of just only having the Creighton coach there to look at you, you might have coaches from other schools there looking at you. So that can be a great opportunity. That's better than only having one option. You might have 10 other college coaches there who might be able to pick you off and say, hey, I really like you. You might come look at me. I used to go to Northern Illinois camp. That was a great one for me. And I would go around and I'd talk to the Northern coaches and I'd say, hey, who do you really like that's not quite the guy for you? And they'd say that one, that one, that one. And I'd go sit and talk to those 3 guys or girls or whoever it was, right? And I got some great players out of that. So, even though those existed, and that kid was probably going there to get in front of Northern, they were able to get in front of me too. So, then there's third-party camps like Exact Academic 50, and College Prospect ID, Future 500. I would just stay away from these. It's my opinion. People might not agree with me, but these companies have gotten way too big to be personal. If you go to their website, they have camps all over the country in tons of different sports, and they pay college coaches to attend them and work them, and they have rules you got to follow as a coach. They give evaluations. I get recruits all the time that send me their evaluations from the Exact ID camp, and it says they're a 90 out of 100. Well, to me, a 90 out of 100 is an A minus, right? That means you're a top player in the country, and I know that kid's not that type of player. I just think they're paid to tell you that everything's great. They want you to come back next year. That's how this company makes money. Coaches have a lot of fun. They're very organized. But they're expensive. They're $300, $400, $500 for a day or two. You got to stay in a hotel for 2 nights, 3 nights. You got to get there. End up being a $2,000 day or a couple days. And usually the coaches that are there are 3rd and 4th assistant coaches, like my friend I was telling you about, who doesn't make a whole lot of money, and they can be there, but they don't have much influence on recruiting either. Their website's loaded with all these coaches are attending. These programs are watching the video, because they send them a link to the video. That's a bunch of BS. No one's watching camp video. You get on teams with kids who can be bad, not good enough to play at the next level, and it hurts your chances. I just really haven't seen, I'm sure it's happened, but I haven't seen kids get recruited out of this. That's just my opinion. Like I said, you may disagree. I'm sure college coaches may watch this, disagree with me. These are a couple emails and texts from college coaches, and I want to show you these. And so if you think that, there's a lot of scam to this whole thing, I wouldn't call it scam, but misleading information, right? They want you to come to their camp, right? These are to a player who worked with me. This player is not a Division I level player. I'm telling you that. I've told this player that. These are from Division I coaches. The first one over here on the left is a text. This is Coach Blank, looking to see if, we'll use my name, Dan Rothert, looking for Dan Rothert. We want to see if you can come to our ID camp this weekend for the class of 2024. Coaches have the ability to mass text. They have, I have that capability as well as a business owner, right? They have it. When I was coaching, we had ability to mass text. So this coach types in every kid in their database and sends this note out. And you can even mail merge it so it changes the name. I'm looking for Dan Rother. I'm looking for Jack Rother, whatever, they can change the name in there and it looks like it's personal. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, this coach was recruiting me at this Division I, and I got to go to this camp this weekend. And you get that FOMO and they're trying to make a buck. I'm telling you. All right. So don't have the fear of missing out on this, and just don't stress out about not going to camps, and have a good return on investment. I'm going to share a worksheet with you here in a little bit. This other one's from Missouri Tigers. I'm blatantly obvious about who this one is, right? It was an email. Obviously, it's unsubscribe here, so it's a mass email, right? That's a dead giveaway, but it looks great. Hey, it has the kid's name. It was a great weekend for our program. We're 1-0. I'd like you to come to this showcase camp that's run by collegesoccerprospects.com, which is it's a camp, third-party camp organization. Sponsors starting to fill up quickly. We'd love to see your name on that list. All right. A funny thing about that one was on social media for the next week, the head coach at Missouri got mad and angry and said, hey, because this was going out that this coach was sending this stuff out. He's like, our coaches don't send that out. That's not part of who we are. Well, she didn't know that the assistant coach signed a contract with collegesoccerprospects.com. Basically what the collegesoccerprospects.com does is says, give us all your names. Give us all your recruiting names. We'll send it out. And every kid that signs up for this camp, from your list of names, you get $50. Right. So it was kind of dicey. I don't know if this person got in trouble with their head coach or not, because the head coach was denying that they were involved. It gets even further. This is another college soccer prospect ID camp. They send a letter in the mail, paper letter. It's got a barcode, so that's a dead giveaway. That's just a mass letter. They sent to everybody. All right. Any address they can get their hands on. Somehow, some way, they got your address. I wanted to reach you out about Indiana State's camp. I'm attending. It's in Chicago, which is weird. They're having another one in St. Louis, and this is about our team, and we really hope you can come visit or come to the camp. Again, they get money for each kid that signs up. So they give Indiana State assistant coach, gave College Prospect ID, your camp info, basically sold it for the fact that if you signed up, they got $50. All right. Just know what's real, know what's not real. I wouldn't go to these. That's just my opinion. But I've been doing this a long time, and I haven't seen anybody get recruited out of those. So enough about that. There's great marketing pressure. The fear of missing out is real. I get it. I see these letters. If I was 16, 15, I'm 50 years old, right? Like I wouldn't fall into that, but I get it. I've seen this. I've lived that life. My friend yesterday, I ran into him, and his son works with me, and I sent a note out to all my clients that don't sign up for Exact and College Prospect and these types of camps, right? And he's like, it's like, thank you for that. And then we had another conversation about, the right camps to go to potentially for him. Because every kid I work with is different. Every kid's looking for something different. And I can assess level of play pretty well, obviously. But we're throwing in academics, throwing in other things, social and financial fit, all those things matter. But the pressure is real. And, but many prospects think they're going to miss out if they don't attend. If you've emailed a coach ever, you've probably gotten a camp invite. Probably get on their list. You've gotten a camp invite. A lot of times it's a camp invite straight off the way. If you've gone to a showcase with your team, or you have an NCSA account, your contact info has probably been sold to third parties. You've gotten invites to camps. All of these are very good at marketing. Institutional camps give you the pressure. The Exact type of camps and those third-party camps are great at like, hey, the spots are running out. You're going to miss your chance. Some schools even have dedicated coaches on their staff. This is truth. And I dealt with it today already. That respond to every email they get and make it seem like they are really interested in you and you need to come to their camp. For instance, I had a kid contact me today. This coach at this certain Division I has been really responsive. They give like a one-sentence response. Hey, thanks for reaching out about the camp. And the kid emails back, "Yeah, thanks, coach. My season's going well. I'm thinking about coming." "Oh, you should come. It'd be great." That coach on that staff, I know, because I've seen it for the past 5 years, 4 years since I've been doing this, is every time they get a response, their goal is to have a little back and forth so that kid thinks they're getting recruited. Mike Klein did an awesome thing, and we're going to talk about that momentarily. And it's what I encourage everybody to do. "Hey, coach, thanks for the invite to the camp. I'm really excited about your school and your soccer program. I'd love to jump on a Zoom call in the next week or two if we can do that to talk about, it's going to be expensive for me and my family to go to your camp and a big commitment of time, energy, and money. And just before I do that, I'd love to have a conversation." If they set up a half-hour Zoom call with you, go for it. And you have a conversation, it seems great, go for it. I said, then they're interested. They're not going to do that to anybody they're not interested in. They don't have the time to do that. I haven't heard back. He hasn't heard back yet, or at least I haven't heard from him yet. So we'll see what happens. But again, I think that there's people like that. He's a fourth assistant on that program. That's his job. Make money for the program, make money for himself, make money for his head coach. So my advice: find colleges you can play at, and you can get accepted to. A lot of kids go to these camps at schools they're never going to get into. I'm going to go to Notre Dame's camp. Can you get into Notre Dame? It's a really hard place to get into, right? I'm going to get into, can you go to Harvard's camp? Are you going to get into Harvard? Let's make sure you're getting in there first. And make sure you can play at that level. Have somebody that's unbiased tell you the truth. It's hard for your club coaches and your high school coaches to tell you that, because then, people get mad at them and they're like, "Yo, he doesn't think I'm as good as I am," and I get that. That's what I do. One of the things that I do: seek local first. All right. And the reason I say that is, a lot of kids, I want to go to school in Florida. I want to go to Florida Gulf Coast. I do too, right? Like, that's awesome. But let's look at it this way. We live in Iowa. All right. There's one NCAA Division I program in Iowa for men. We'll just talk about men right now, just because it's a little bit easier. They have 4 Iowans on the roster currently. They're going to get a few more. A few kids that I'm working with are going there next year, which is great. But if you aren't being recruited by Drake and you're from Iowa and a male, I find it really difficult to think that a higher level Division I, so Wake Forest, Clemson, Syracuse, Indiana, whatever, is going to recruit you if Drake's not recruiting you and they're kind of your backyard school. If your backyard school doesn't know who you are, or schools in the region don't know who you are, and I don't think you're good enough, probably gonna be a lot harder to go to, across the country, because they also have their own backyard to pick from as well, in addition to the whole country and higher level programs and internationals and all of this stuff too. So if you get an email later back from a coach inviting you to an ID camp, respond back. I think it's totally great to respond back, but have specific questions for them. I'll give you a few right here. "Hi, coach. I'm interested in your camp. It's a lot for my family, and I had to sacrifice to come out to Stanford this summer. So before I register, I have a few questions. How many center backs do you need for the class of 2025? Will coaches from other colleges be in attendance? If so, who?" Those little questions like that. There's more you can ask. But if you ask those and they don't even respond to you, not worth going, right? If they do respond to you, then you ask for maybe a call next week, right? Right here. And my favorite way of finding out if camp is real or not, or worth it with a coach: "Hey, coach, you think we can jump on a call next week, in the next week or two, so I can learn about your program and what you're looking for before I register?" All right. If they set up a call with you, they might be interested, right? Definitely a lot better chance they're interested than they're not. And my experience also tells you, if you get crickets, nothing happens, they're not interested. Right? Crickets means they're not interested, right? And a lot of kids are like, "Well, just wait and see." That's right. And things can change. And we're going to talk about that momentarily too. Things can change. I'm not here to be the negative, person on the Zoom here, but I want to be truthful. But you don't have to be an IED camp chaser. I don't think you have to go at all. I really truly don't think that. You may have to, like I said, if you're looking at schools across the country, if you get a personal invite, if that's what the coach says is next step in the process for you because they've seen you play in person with your team. Every school's got a little bit different approach. And you have to kind of lead by what the coach is telling you to do, but you also have to make sure it's real conversation with that coach. There are some good camps out there, and you'll get in front of a lot of coaches and you'll get better. I mean, obviously get better. So when and where to go? Before entering ninth grade, I don't think there's any reason to go to one of these camps. Actually, I think it's a turn on. Like I think if if I was a college coach and I show up and they say there's an eighth grader at the camp, I'm like, well, that's probably just slowing down the speed of play, right? Because playing against maybe 12th graders or 11th graders and things like that. The year after ninth grade, summer after ninth grade. So if you're a freshman right now, I still don't think you need to go to camps. There's no reason for a boy. Boys and girls recruiting timelines are a little bit different, and that's why I get into that. Girls are about 9 months to a year ahead of boys, recruited earlier. So there could be some things after freshman year for girls that I think are more important than boys. But after ninth grade for a boy, I don't think there's any reason you need to go to a camp either. Enjoy it, have fun, maybe go to a camp to learn and get better, but you don't need to go to an ID camp where you're just going to get evaluated in a tryout situation. You could go to a couple, 1 and 2, and just to get the experience, but don't go with the expectation that you're going to start getting recruited. After ninth grade girls, all right, maybe if you're a top player in the country, this can help you get on radars. It could. I'm talking with a player right now who fully expects, she's a sophomore, but she fully expects to have a phone call with UCLA June 15th. All right. We expect this will happen because of conversations we've had with UCLA. All right. She's one of the top players in the country. Okay. And she's from California, and they've seen her play a million times. But typically speaking, there's no reason to go unless you're going to learn in those environments, unless you're one of those top players and you're looking at that type of level of play. After 10th grade, boys, coaches are starting to put boys on their watch list, talk to some boys, after 10th grade. But most of summer recruiting for boys comes in that year between junior and senior year, if I'm being honest. And I should take it back. Some winter of junior year, from December of junior year through into senior year, summer, that can happen in that timeline. That's when most of it happens. But you can still get on radars. Coaches can still see who you are after 10th grade. So I think going to some camps then is okay. After 10th grade for girls, you're going to start getting personal invites and go where you're interested in and invited to. And just make sure it's a real invite. And then summer before junior year, the summer before senior year is when recruiting happens for most girls. Spring to summer of junior year through early spring of your senior year is when most recruiting happens for boys. So that's when you really need to really move the needle on a lot of camps. But you don't need to be a camp chaser, going to every single one of them. I'm going to send this out to everybody that's on here tonight. So you won the lottery. You get to have this. This is something I give my clients. It's an ID camp prioritization worksheet. It gives you return on investment. It helps you decide, if a camp is really worth it. You put the camp name at the top. It's got different categories, and what you do is you rank those categories. Below is you will list the name of the camp and the estimated cost. Be sure to include travel, hotel, and food costs in addition to camp fees. Then rate each camp 1 to 5 in the categories provided below, and then add those totals, and you'll determine the value of each camp. So estimated total cost, you rank it. Will I get accepted to those schools, to the schools attending this camp? Have I had a real or personal conversation with the coaches attending? Do you believe you have the ability to play at those colleges, hosting or attending the event? Does the camp work in your family's calendar? Do you know where you stand with the coaches attending the event? If there is interest, did the coach say that in order to be considered, you must attend the camp? Is the camp the only way a coaching staff will be able to play to see you and evaluate you. And then you get a total value for each camp, and you can really determine. This kind of gives you the bottom part, is some tips and tricks to it. I think the best value exists in 1-day camps that are reasonably priced, where you don't have to spend time, energy, and money on hotels and things like that. But if you get really specific with school, there might be some other things that are of value. I go over them with the kids I work with. We talk about them, and I give them my opinions on certain camps too. So, because they might have some on the list that I love, and they might have some of the camps that I'm like, I just gotta be aware of that. You gotta look out for that one, because I don't want them to. I can't make the decisions for them. I never can, but I can certainly give some opinions, right? But I'll give you that. I'll send you that out. Just talk quickly about current trends in recruiting and some things along those lines. And remember, you can put things in the chat in the Q&A anytime, and I'll get to those questions and answer those as we go along. But I'll wait till the end as well. The transfer portal is still a really big thing, right? It has made recruiting change all the time. And I mentioned that, right? Like a school that didn't need a player may need a player all of a sudden. 500 players entered the transfer portal last week, men's and women's soccer combined. It was about 250 each. So what does that mean? There's schools that are looking for players. There still are schools looking for players. I get calls every day. Hey, do you have a goalkeeper? Do you have a center back? Those types of things. A school that didn't need a player, that thought they were good last week, is changing all the time. Why did it change last week? Because spring season just ended, and now players kind of know where they stand. Maybe they thought, oh, a couple of kids are graduating in front of me, I'm going to be a starter. And now they're not a starter, and they're not happy, and they want to look somewhere else. Or, things are changing all the time in that way. Plus, now because of the transfer portal, some coaches just sit back and recruit from their couch. That's changed with recruiting. Coaches don't go out as much. They don't go to as many showcases and events. I worked with some senior girls last year, and I talked about the timeline just a few minutes ago. Girls recruiting is, fairly, most people think you got to be signed by your senior year. At the latest, I had 2 girls last year that we were working together for a while, and they just weren't ready to commit. Hadn't found the right fit yet, but also just like in their mindset, they weren't going down that path yet. And we just said, let's just relax and wait and have fun and enjoy your senior year. And then when it comes go time, we'll know it. And then February came around, and a couple Division I and Division II schools showed interest, and they got offers from a variety of levels. So this thing is changing all the time. The transfer portal has changed things tremendously. So there's always going to be opportunities, but are they the right ones for you? That's every player is different in that regard. Club jumping. All right. This is a real trend, right? People think they're chasing, I got to be an ECNL, or I got to be an MLS Next. There's a ton of different alphabet soup names of leagues and things like that. People think that playing an ECNL or changing leagues will help their recruiting. Certainly, it is not a lie that more college coaches go to maybe MLS Next is probably the highest rated division, the highest rated club program for boys, and ECNL. And GA is close behind, but ECNL is probably the highest rated on the girls' side. My advice is there are certain exceptions to this rule, and there are certain kids that might need that situation, but your trajectory doesn't change based on what club you are in. It doesn't. Like if you're going to end up playing at a low-level Division I, going to play for this in ECNL club or staying with your current club probably doesn't make a difference. Vice versa. If you're a Division III level player, going to an ECNL club or an MLS Next club doesn't make you a Division I player. Right? And I don't know if you want that. All of a sudden you're the last. If it did make that difference, now you're the last player on the bench at a Division I versus being a starter in Division III. I think that you get something to think about, but don't believe the hype. There's a lot of hype out there. There's a lot of people saying you got to be in these types of clubs and be in this. You can spend tens of thousands of dollars playing these types of clubs, and don't mind the travel and the missing school and the late nights in a car and driving 3 hours to practice and stuff like that. I don't think you need it. I think you can do the right things, reaching out to coaches. Like I said, there are certain exceptions, but and I'd never say an individual isn't right for that. There are, like I said, there's certain exceptions. You live, in the middle of nowhere, and no one's ever going to see you play, and somebody needs to do that. So those things can really happen. Showcases uh, are less attended by college coaches than before. Like showcases are dying, right? Coaches don't feel the need to go to every showcase. They just don't. They can recruit in the transfer portal. They can do different things, and they can find different ways to recruit. They can go to ID camps. They can, there are certain coaches that just do internationals. It's changed everything. Showcase events seem to be watered down. Fewer and fewer coaches are attending. There's still some good ones out there, but they don't even really. They've been dying so bad they don't even give you like the rosters anymore that have the kids' contact info and that type of thing. So they're few and far between. Coaches don't want to spend a whole weekend at a showcase anymore. They don't. They give up weekends all the way through the whole year. They have lives. So when they do want to evaluate, camps seem to be a great option because it's only a few hours they need to attend. Many coaches sign up for these showcases now, and they say they're going to be there, and they're not there. Happens all the time. All right, they do it because they get the email list from the showcase, and then they can send out their own camp invites to all those kids. But I will say this: if you do go to showcases, tournaments, whatever, make sure your team has a roster with contact info, academic info, and other info for coaches, and make sure there's a parent assigned to the team that can walk around and hand them out to college coaches in attendance. You're going to see college coaches sitting on corners, stuff like that. Make sure you do that, and also reach out to coaches in those areas. Reach out to the ones that are say they're coming to the camp or the showcase, but also reach out to the schools in that area. I just had a player that reached out to. I just wrote a little blog about it. Reached out to 3 schools. They were playing a high school game in the area, and they reached out to 3 high school coaches in that area. Hey, coach, I got this high school game on Saturday morning. We play in your area. We're never in that area. I'd love for you to come see me play. All 3 coaches went to see her play. All 3 coaches really liked her and just really started the recruiting process with her. So in your high school club, whatever, you're playing a tournament, you're playing a game far away, or where there's a college, get those college coaches recruiting you. Even if they're local schools you might not be that interested in, coaches leave, coaches move, they move to a new school you might really like. They have connections. All right. So if, hey, I don't see myself going to your school, it's in my backyard, but that coach might know somebody at the school you really want to go to. So you want them to be interested in it. Like I said, there's so much confusion, so many blurred lines. Some coaches will lead you on to get you to come to their camp. Like I said, there's coaches that are hired to do that. It happens. Just don't get led on like those text messages I showed you. Really get good at crafting emails that make you sound like they are interested. Coaches are really good at crafting emails that are make you sound like they're interested in you. Some programs have massive camps, and they're making a ton of money on these things. So just know what you're getting involved in, and make sure that you're really asking the right question and thinking about your own return on investment. Because guess what? You fill out this worksheet. 2 days later, 5 more camps might pop up that in your email, and you're like, "Oh, I got to go to these. They're great." Take a deep breath, really assess the situation, and pick the ones that are right for you. Social media adds to the confusion, right? I see it all the time, and I don't even do social media anymore. I've given it up completely because I think it's just noise in my world. But you don't need social media to get recruited. I don't think having a Twitter or an Instagram account in soccer gets you recruited. In other sports, football does it. They live in that world. And I don't know why they do, but football doesn't have club. Football doesn't. They play a high school season, and that's where they get recruited through the high school coach. And they have to have, they never play again. So the coach has to see their video and they're going to post all this stuff and that type of thing. In soccer, it doesn't happen. There are some schools that might be doing it. I think they're desperate, to be honest. If they're not going out and seeing kids play, They're desperate schools. The key is to direct target coaches by communicating with them. Send them a good video, schedule, reasons why you're good for their school. Um, don't fall for those desperate tactics of, hey, there's only 3 camp spots left and you need to come here to get recruited, and the stuff on social media. I don't think it's needed. I don't like to play in that world. I think there's a lot of fear of missing out, obviously. So what should you do this summer? Spend time reaching out to coaches. Have a good highlight video, update it. Have highlight video from club and high school and whatever seasons are going on. Show your growth as a player, right? Let coaches know you're attending camps or showcases. Again, coaches go watch kids that have shown interest in them. Try to start a conversation back and forth. If you're going to the ODP event in St. Louis, look and see if there's an attendee list and reach out to those schools, but reach out to local schools. I reach out to every school around that area within a couple hours. Make sure they know you're playing there and see if you can get some to come watch you play, right? And have a good video so they want to come watch you play. That's an important piece of the puzzle. They don't just come and watch you randomly. If you have a good video and you can show some things, they might come and watch you play. Don't just hope one outreach is going to get you found. Follow up multiple times. Sometimes they miss it. Sometimes it didn't go through the first day. If you didn't hear from them 2 to 3 times, after 2 to 3 reach outs, maybe it's time to move on. But before then, coaches miss it and they move. I miss emails all the time. You get a lot in one day and you got a lot going on, and that one you forgot about it for a few days and make it back to it. But coaches miss them. They get tons of emails. Crickets, you get silence, usually means not interested, and you got to be able to deal with that sometimes. It's not easy. It's not fun. Nobody likes it. But cast a wide net, listen to everybody, respond to everybody, respond within 24 hours. I think that's a big deal. If you can respond within 24 hours, your stock goes up, right? Coaches love that. You never know. And go to showcases and tournaments and camps and that are good fits for you, and go fit, like physically fit. Like don't sit around all summer and then show up at one, right? Go and keep your fitness level high. Go ready to go. It's a tryout. Don't be shy. Be fun. Be engaging. Be someone they want on their team. Be someone they're going to pick if there's an all-star game. Like find a way for them to know who you are, right? And it's not just being a ball hog and stuff like that. It's the intangibles. You got to be vocal. You got to be fun. You got to be brave. Don't have slow down moments. Like even when the game is getting casual because it's 4-0, you got to keep going and grinding and try for more, right? Because you only have those 2 hours maybe to be in front of that coach. So be memorable. I'll open it up for questions. I do think, the best, having people that in your corner that can really help you with recruiting, with connections, and knowing how to move the needle can make all the difference. Reduce stress, things I do, connect people I work with college coaches, help them save money on college tuition, because I know how that system works, but also camps and this whole thing, and really reduce stress in the process and really help guide you all the way. My contact information is here if you want to reach out to me individually. But if there are questions and things you want to add, ask right now. Ask them in the chat or the Q&A at the bottom, and feel free to reach out to me. I'll send a follow-up with that worksheet and some other information. But I'll hang out here for a few minutes, and if any questions pop up, I'll answer those. I don't see any at this point, but as they come up, I'll answer them. If not, thank you for joining me, and hopefully you got some good information there, and it was helpful in that process. But again, I'm not a camp chaser. I think you can go to some. I think they can be important, and I think they will be important probably at some point in your process. But if you're not having real communication with a coach, I don't know if that is where I'd put my time and energy. Again, hope you found this information valuable. If anything does come up, reach out to me personally. topstudentathlete.recruiting@gmail.com. You'll get an email probably from me with a worksheet. There'll be some contact information there. So thanks for joining me. I don't see anything popping up. I'll wait another 30 seconds or so in case there is, but Yeah, good question. What about club jumping or league jumping if a player wants more competition? Yeah, certainly. I think that can be valuable. Yeah, I think if your club team isn't challenged, or you feel like you could be challenged more. Yeah, I had a player do that recently. And like I said, there are exceptions to that rule, right? Um, Depending on who you are as a player and what you're looking for, and make sure you don't go somewhere and club jump and now you're sitting on the bench because like some leagues have limited substitutions. That's just one thing that I think about because you don't want to you'll be going to all the big showcases now, but now you're never playing. However, I think it can prove fruitful, right? Like I got a kid right now that's going to go play MLS next, but they were from the middle of nowhere in Maine, right? They're a kid. They found me through connection. I worked with a friend of theirs, not from Maine originally. This kid's really good. He needs more competition, right? And we'll see where it goes from there. And he's good enough to play at that next level. So yeah, I think that can happen. Um, yeah, if you're getting invited to MLS next, U12 stuff, and showcase those types of things. Hey man, it's a big commitment. Do you want to go? Are you willing to let your kid live across the country? I've seen it work both ways. I've seen kids go and have a great experience and love it, and I've seen kids get homesick and want to come back and finish high school back home. It goes both ways. I think, if you want to reach out to me individually, I'd certainly help you with that question. There's a lot more to that, but you get into some of that stuff when you start talking far away from home and things like that. But I think there's value in some of it. I don't think you should club jump to, when you're older in hopes it's going to change your recruiting. I think you can club jump to get more experience or better coaching if your situation isn't great or whatever that might be, right? There's different things. So um, another question is ODP a good pathway to getting exposure? Say the regional team. Yeah, I think regional team is probably you can make the regional team. There's a lot of college coaches on the regional staff. I've seen it help with college recruiting in the process. You get to the regional events and those types of things, and even the national events. There's a lot, even more coaches at those events than maybe our more local events. It's hard. Anything's watered down a little bit now, and I love ODP. I work in it, right? But I'll be honest, like we have the St. Louis sub-regional event, and it's the same weekend as um, President's Cup in Ohio, and it's the same weekend as something else, right? So will every college coach be there and swimming at ODP event? No, because they might be an assistant at one place and someone somewhere else, or they might not go that weekend. Every coach is looking for something different and they're going to different events. But I do think it's a good pathway to get more exposure if you're in a club that maybe doesn't get as much exposure as other places. But you got to do the work. You got to let coaches know you're playing. You got to get yourself out in the right situation for you, and let them know what's happening there. It's important. But if you want to get more into those questions, I can talk all day about this stuff. So you can feel free to give me a call. I'm open to phone calls. It's fine. 563-564-6122. We can send me a text or we can set up a Zoom call or we can just talk about this stuff. I'm not, not going to charge you or anything like that. There's no pressure. I'll tell you more about what I do, obviously, but that being said, there's a lot of questions and I'm happy to help. Questions? All right. We will, anything else that comes up, holler at me. Um, we'll do our best to, answer questions. If I'm going to be in St. Louis in a month, right? Grab me. I'm going to be at the Iowa High School State Tournament. Grab me if you want to chat for a few minutes, right? If you're there and those types of things. You see me and you want to chat about things, I'm around. So that's what I do. I like what I do. It's a lot of fun. Every kid I work with is totally different. So it gives us a different perspective of what we're looking for. But appreciate you joining me tonight. Some great questions and a lot to consider, right? So I'll send you that information in a follow-up and have a great night.